relatively speaking, to some extent, there's reviewals of devices, right? That's really, really cool going forward to certain extents. And some of the main components individuals want, you know, for aggregately speaking, not everybody's the same. Sometimes there is micro levels to certain extents, but I think a lot of people have some similar characteristics just as a general overlying theme. Price is not always the biggest determinant, but I mean, if there's economization out here to be made to a certain extent, sometimes that's very beautiful, right? Just like anything else in life. But with the purchase of a new device, as far as electronic, phone, whatever, right? But in this instance, a phone per se, economization as far as the best price, the best bang for your buck. But sometimes you do get what you pay for to a certain extent, right? So to speak. And at times, I guess there is a relative difference between that of this and this and that. As far as, sometimes you get that of a half-price device, whether it be, you've obviously seen how some of these premium devices are both luxury, also to a certain extent, some of the highest computable power going forward for a handheld device, right? So, I mean, sometimes you take the good with the bad and try not to throw the baby out with the freaking bathwater, so to speak. But again, this is a little bit of a review, just periodic, as is necessary to certain extents, of that perspective of, I think it's a Google 3A. Is it a Pixel 3A to a certain extent? Correct me if I'm wrong. It's going to be in the title above for what it's worth. So good. At this present moment, to certain extents, a little bit of the UI probably takes a little bit of more getting used to a certain extents. As far as the buttons, are they on the screen? Or are they, there's not like place markers on the screen. But a lot of this new realm stuff, digital realm stuff, is people think it's really, really cool to have things like squeeze functions where the sides, like you saw on some of the other Android devices, as far as Edge, when the Edge, Galaxy Edge, sort of thing came out, where the sides of the device actually have, pressure points where you can kind of do different types of send signals to the phone through the sides of the device. So that's kind of been big in a lot of realms. Sometimes things are big just like everything else. Like what is it, pogo sticks and whatever else might be prospectively be out here that were literally so big for a little bit. Maybe those shoes that had like heels like this, not heels because heels are always big, but literally the shoes, the whole bottom of the sole was like this thick, etc. I'm sure that happened sometime. I think I heard of that or something, and literally that stuck around for a little bit for what it's worth, but didn't stick, right? So sometimes things go in and out, just like trends. So should I say you shouldn't chase trends? Maybe you should start a trend, right? That's really cool. But even beyond the scope of just starting a trend and having it catch on like wildfire, to a certain extent, should you chase trends? Well, I think to extents of unnecessariness, I think you shouldn't chase trends, right? To certain extents, but I think you should monetize trends if you could, right? If you see a trajectory. Well, trends is different from trends is actually entendre. It's an ambiguous term because literally trend could be the way the trajectory is moving like holistically on an aggregate scale, right? Then that's really, really good. And then you want to get with that, right, so to speak. Like everything going digital, right? Everything going this, that, etc. I don't see that going anywhere as far as that trend, unless, God forbid, some type of realm as far as security and privacy and all these things that are already invasive, etc. Big issues into the 22nd century. I don't know. Supposedly, obviously, it's always an uphill battle for most of us, right, so to speak. But it's also true that, trends like other things like those platform shoes or what is it? What other trends could I think of? Literally, spinners on your car sort of stuff, so to speak. That's really, really big, really, really cool to a certain extent. But, at the same token, that's not what you want to invest all your fucking cookie coins in, your lunch money into, etc. I mean, if you want to monetize it for the moment, but that's a quick, long-term, maybe year flip, you understand, for what it's worth, maybe 2 or 3 at most, right, so to speak. And like value investors have suggested, it's also true that sometimes if you don't really believe in the formidable company, I know there's a whole industry built around this sort of stuff. It creates inconsistencies with cyclical natures of the markets, right? Because the less stability there is, the less motherfuckers like to be there, right? So the more fucking negative the consumer sentiments and all sorts of varying factors, right, so to speak. But they say if you don't want to be there for fucking 10 years or more in like a ownership of something, then maybe it's not something you should be really like, fucking with too much, obviously, to certain extents. Like if it's something that's going to be literally around for a moment or into the trajectories of the future as far as technologically inclined, it's still going to be relative as far as even only a segment that grows with inflation or whatever, right? Then that might be a good thing, so to speak. But again, you can monetize those trends over that year to a certain extent. And the trends that are really long-term aggregately, obviously those are good goes. But chasing dreams and waterfalls, whatever, man. A lot of this shit is pixie dust. Beyond the scope of that, I got to get to it. Again, my review of this device is just that. I think a little bit of the buttons are mostly predominantly maybe on the screen, so to speak. So to speak. So, again, read the title up there. You'll see what the device is to a certain extent. So I'll give it a moderate rating. As far as getting what you pay for, the lighting in here is really piss poor. Sometimes, I'm not so crazy about the device to a certain extent as far as the picture quality, but relatively for comparables to that of a $48 device, etc., much better, much more computatable as far as power, and also more palatable as far as the imagery. But as far as these higher end tier devices, especially within the Samsung branch, etc., sometimes the cameras are just like, basically, formerly, as a spoiled one, from this millennial generation, etc., sometimes it's just as good as literally relatively professional. Not professional, because that's like another term. I'm not trying to push the fucking boundaries here, but it's also true that you can really do a lot with a device. But sometimes you make do with what you got, and sometimes that leads unto maximum efficiencies for your enterprise going forward, or for your pictures of your selfie in front of the Eiffel Tower, so to speak, or whatever. And maybe I need to adjust something on here to a certain extent, but I think it's moderately good bang for the buck. I mean, it's a half price tier from that of the the Samsung Galaxy, etc. to a certain extent, but maybe within regards to this or that, it's also true that you get a little bit more computing power. A little bit maybe. UI is open for debate. Sometimes people like different things differently, right? So I think again, it's just the screen. It's just kind of like open for debate, right? But I'm kind of spoiled rotten as far as getting onto that of the like really neat UI as far as Apple's always been predominant with, and also Samsung Galaxy to a certain extent. They're different, right? Apple and Samsung people, Apple and Android people, right? Like, are you judging? Everybody's judging everybody by what fucking phone they got, right? Apparently, the rule of thumb is that, I'm not judging anybody out here, but what the rule of thumb is that overall, as an aggregate world scale, people think that people are more luxury when they have an Apple device, right? How cute is that? And literally, they also think people are more overall on a global scale, like more not only luxury but also more affluent to a certain extent, right? So it's all open for debate, right? So, I mean, and again, this is consumer sentiments of not only your life, etc., but your impressioning on people on a global scale, right? So a lot of times people can't even tell the fucking difference, right? Like Dave Chappelle says, talking about Coca-Cola and Pepsi. Shit, man, I can't even tell the difference, man. You know what I mean, so to speak. Like, literally, Pepsi paid me last, so for the moment, or no, he didn't say for the moment, but so fuck it, Pepsi tastes better. You know what I'm saying, so to speak. I don't think they taste different. It was kind of satire, but all good jokes contain a little bit of true shit, right? So, open for debate. Again, I want to get a little bit more into the breadth of it. Camera's good, better lighting, probably pretty palatable to a certain extent for half the price of a device. I mean, goddamn. I mean, that's workable. That's manageable. As far as the RAM, I didn't look up much into it, etc. It seems a lot slower. I guess half price slower, right, so to speak. But I'm sure there's a little bit of room for creation of wealth as far as you're cutting the budgetary means to a certain extent, but also a happy, sashable, equilibrium of sorts. But sometimes you do get what you pay for as a general overlying theme. Sometimes you get more than what you pay for. But as far as the computing power RAM-wise, I don't think it's even like, I guess it's half-price device. So it goes to show that we'll get the job done, though. You can do a lot. Doesn't have 5G networking, nothing like that to a certain extent. But I just opened it up. So for what it's worth, so not the end of the world. But sometimes you need it just to, get on your feet and get out here and handle business to a certain extent. So obviously stay optimistic. Hard work is the key. Getting up off your ass and just going to go get it as far as whatever you got to do to make sure you can invest in yourself, invest in your mind, invest in the next generation, invest in learning, and so on and so forth, right? So again, the camera is not so good, but again, the lighting in here is really piss poor, so maybe not the highest tier device in that of, it's dark outside too, I tried to test it out there, so again, another Reviewal, and there's probably settings on there. I've never touched with settings ever before, as far as, using your camera as a professional device, or even any type of edits or something like that. But I just usually like the devices as far as what I've been accustomed to with Samsung, all the way from, I think, Samsung 8, Samsung 9, and then, Samsung 10, etc. Those devices are just naturally, like, really quality cameras, right? So, half the battle, right? But I think we'll get the job done, and sometimes you can hear me nonetheless, and sometimes it's just about putting in the work, man. The rest speaks for itself to a certain extent, right? So, I think that's it for now. I'll try to test test and wade the waters in more and more beneficial, quality environment, right, so to speak. But it's also true that sometimes, low lighting, I guess, it's not so grandiose of a camera, but I think the external outside camera too, taking pictures of other things, the Eiffel Tower, or even, let me see if I can switch this around. I guess it doesn't do that while you're on the thing. I guess not. So, not so sure, but what a blessing, right? And keep on your toes, keep working hard. Don't ruin your life for something that's not going to matter in 5 years from now, you understand? A lot of people ruin their lives for things that aren't going to matter 5 years from today. That's a rule of thumb. I've heard that. That's an appropriation for some proverb out there, literally, that I once upon a time heard. So don't do that. Obviously, slow down if you have to. Go as fast as you can, but, at the same token, you don't want to be so belligerently wild out here to a certain extent, or do you, right? Wink, wink, for what it's worth, but it's so true that even if you are a wild, untamed beast or animal, so to speak, you still want to, and that's satire, right? But you still want to slow down and totally, think with logic, right? Sometimes people get too intuitively, you act on instinct too, but sometimes if you have enough time to do a cost-benefit analysis, even periodically, like short-term, fast-paced, right away, then that's advantageous, right? Because the future belongs to those who prepare for it today. And again, you can go out there gambling and shit, and a lot of people do gamble, right? But sometimes, like I've pronounced in a song once upon a time when I was a young lad, I'm not into any of that stuff anymore, except on the ownership tier of that, etc. But it's also true that you freaking prospectively, it's what I say. This is verbatim. This is a big ramble. Gambling, but with logic, so it's 20-year profits. You understand? So that's a little bit of historical state for you. History does not reflect the future. Make your own choices. Be wise out here. Consistency is so good. In a certain sense, it says 30% left battery, so the battery's banging, baby, booming for the moment. Burning through it, man. So don't burn all your bridges, but keep a very high functional, high loaded FU available whenever necessary. Obviously, what a blessing, right? Does it look like me or no? I think I look better in person, bro, but come see me live, man. But I'll see you soon, all right? Peace. All right, take care. And again, the Reviewal is moderately just from first glance. People want to know a little bit more about the specs. That would be like a really proper Reviewal, but I don't have anything written down. I could Google it right now, but I don't have a computer in front of me. I'm a little bit on the edge as far as not situated as much as I like to be, right? So true, Sometimes you don't have all the devices with you. I could Google it real fast if you wanted me to, but just from looking at it, this is intuitive sake, and I'm always talking about empirical evidence, so this is not facts. I think moderately well, right? Not 5G, not probably moderately a computer of yesteryear, etc., but not up with these 8 and 12 gigabyte computers, right? So computers, not computers, but literally devices, right? So that's a different beast to say the least, right? So hard drive space, I'm not sure. I'm sure it's like, optional, probably, and with cloud storage, computing storage, it's all relative. So I would say a good device for a young, it depends on the familiar ties, etc. If you're not, the better the device you can have, the better off you'll potentially be. But then again, everything is, in cyclical nature to a certain extent. And sometimes you roll with the punches, right? So I think the better the device, the more competitive advantage, just like artillery, whatever, right? Sometimes there's fractional, benefits, right? And fractional benefits sometimes saves fucking lives out here. Sometimes makes all the difference, but sometimes the real consistency is you can do a lot with what you got, and you know how to use it right. I was just on that $40 phone, using the shit out of it, man. And it was fucking banging, baby, and I was making it work, man. And that's half the battle, and that's sometimes what really makes the come up so beautiful for a lot of you out there, and even beyond. Making the most out of what you got and flipping it into more. And then upgrading as you progressively make progress. Because you can make progress with that $40 phone, but I don't think you could as far as the actual visual. I think it's unacceptable in that regard. This is acceptable for the visual, and maybe even very good in the light to a certain extent, right? There's no lighting in here for what it's worth, so. And maybe there's adjustments on here. Maybe you got to do a little bit of that adjusting that you don't normally have to do on other phones, etc. But I think a little bit to a certain extent, palatable and fast enough. You can do a lot with it. You learn how to utilize the apps and microphone and You do podcasting, whatever, right? So I think it's called the Google 3A, right? 3A's, baby. Triple A, baby. So and with time, you throw that fourth A on there, so to speak, because inflation is at 4% per year, and obviously everything gets bigger and bigger and bolster, and there's more obstacles. Those same obstacles lead to more painstaking that you can solve, and henceforth more opportunity, right? So that's what you got to think going forward to a certain extent. Get up off your ass, go get it. Nothing wrong with a hard day's work. Talk is very cheap. So again, wake up tomorrow, get serious. Have as much fun as you want. Well, I can't tell you anything, man. Just do what you want to do, man. But realize that every outcome has an equal or lesser. Every action has a equal or lesser response or outcome, ramification, right? And be that ramification for better or for worser. I mean, the choice might be deemably yours. Be proactive in the process. Life does happen to you. But then again, maybe you're happening to life, right? So, I mean, it's open for debate. But again, the last quotation I'll leave you with is a proverb from someone else to a certain extent. And it's literally the whole ordeal that, maybe 30, 60% of what, life is 60% what happens to you and the rest, remainder, right? 40%, 30%, whatever, right? 50%, depending on how optimistic you are, right? Is how you react to the situation, right? So make sure you're proactive out here. You don't want to just react to bad news, right? You want to prevent it, circumvent it, and when it does happen, regardless of circumventation, and you handle it at that point, you're still been reactive not reactive, you've been proactive the whole time, and then you're very reactive if it still occurs, even though you took preventative measures. But trust me, it's probability game, statistic game, etc. to a certain extent, in every realm of finance, every realm of life decisions, every realm of success, this, that, etc. And obviously there is, there is 99 to 1 probabilities, etc. Or 1 out of 99 chance, and literally sometimes that one can win, etc. But again, you want to increase as a catalysm going forward, your odds going forward. So, I mean, you want to, it's just numbers. So literally to a certain extent, like, if you flip a coin 5,000 times, it's gonna land. I mean, relatively speaking, half tails, half heads, right, so to speak. So it's also true that use that variance, that varying potential to your advantage, when you analyze it compared to other comparables, right? So 17 and running. This is the first time I busted her, man. I busted her open, and I literally seen how she's a good phone. Relatively not the best I ever seen, but relatively to be appreciated and of worth. And literally, to say the least, got me through this moment, got me home. So relatively, there's a lot of behind the scenes situations that go into that, but it's also true that I would say if you're looking for economical device and you don't want to do that of the, sometimes cash is king in the sense that relatively, if you don't want to do any of that other, those type of ploys, that stimulate a stimulus, kind of like quantitative easing within the technological communication sector, etc. to a certain extent, then maybe you'll go for an even cheaper phone. But if you want to spring for something that's going to be palatable as far as you getting the job done, having a good this, good that, etc. to a certain extent, then this is a really good phone, half the price of the other comparable phones. That may be better relatively. I just told you the camera's better, maybe have better processor, maybe better, open for debate, the UI, it's all palatable, but then better camera, camera and processor, hard drive, or not hard drive so much because external hardware that you can store your stuff in the cloud, but camera and processor, as far as RAM, power, access to 5G to come. But then again, you could always wait to the future for it. So it depends on your age, so to speak. But, the more stuff you get to play with, the more well-versed you'll be as things go forward to a certain extent. Obviously, it seems like a little bit like a kid's phone because literally it's like you squeeze the sides and shit like that. But, sometimes people are into that type of shit going forward. And, it's kind of like a trend. So maybe if it picks up and it increases the value, is there value and stuff like that? Yeah, especially once, things you gotta work the fucking kinks out, right? But not that specific thing. I'm just saying, sometimes it just takes market research as far as the people getting a feel for it. And the consumer, the best tip out there of the day, I'm going to end this on this note, is that you ask your consumer base what the fuck they want. And if they answer you, some of it will be bullshit, man. Most people are just bullshitting, and they're not even trying to bullshit you. They just don't have enough of this computing power right between their eyes to really be so helpful going forward. But even if not, they'll tell you if they like it or not. They can always do that, and they're really good at that. But beyond the scope of that, some people will actually hit you with some really good ideas out here formidably. So obviously, and tell you how to cater to them, right? To the demographic, and inspire innovation to a certain extent. Because literally, me myself, like it says, it's visionary. Like I was describing myself to pick myself, illustrate about myself, visionary, creative, innovative. And I saw on Twitter, he says you have seldom few unique ideas to a certain extent. And I kind of was satirically, comically, pretentiously, ostentatious as it could be, braggart of sorts, right? Totally, amiably, suggesting, bullshit. I mean, that's great. That sounds good, but bullshit, man. So on and so forth. But it's also true that to certain extents, you totally look towards what is it? Sometimes you are influenced, whether it be from your 6th grade teacher to a certain extent teaching you mathematics and how that translates into your creative ideas, beyond me. But in that sense, it's true. But as far as everybody's different, everybody has different biology, this, that, etc. So be consistent. It's not the end of the world. You can recover from anything. It's also true. And to certain extents, I think, the world's always going to talk. Whether you're doing good or bad, so you might as well do the best you can, right? And calm down. Sometimes life will stress you out because, everybody's just somebody, right? And somebody's just the motherfucking one, baby. So keep that in perspective when you're thinking about life to certain extents. Obviously, I'm really glad to have a device that will get me through the rainy days for what it's worth. And obviously, I'm looking towards better things to come, right? So not comparable to the S10 to certain extents, but then again, it is, right? So, open for debate. Hope that wasn't too much of a ramble. Thanks so much. That's it. Thank you so much again. And roll with the punches. Obviously, not trying to cause so much turmoil or tumultuous times out here. Just trying to do the best I personally can to certain extents. And, not fist fight too much if I don't got to, right? Need to brush my teeth, right? I brushed them, but they look pretty straight though. Looks like I have braces, right? I didn't have braces. That's really good teeth for not having braces, right? So make you want to kiss your teeth. All right, thank you again. Sign up at GabrielGriffin.com. I'm getting ready to totally, update the system, build another platform, etc. to certain extents, and update formidably all the platforms, and really make things really good. So. That might even take a little bit more restructuring, etc. Of the choice. I'm not gonna go too in depth because there's some secrets I can't say in this song, but I think I might totally go to a different realm as far as building some new cool stuff. As far as I gotta get back to work though, you know what I'm saying? So can't get so distracted. A lot of the stuff out here is relative distractions to a certain extent. So roll with the punches. All right. Thank you again. Roll with it. GabrielGriffin.com. Sign up. Follow me at Gabriel R. Griffin. Follow me at Spotify. I think it's called. Just search Google Gabriel Griffin podcast. There's probably 2 of them, but one of them should be predominantly good to go. Either or, really, but I'm only active on one of them. But I have access to everything, so should be good to go, baby. Thanks again. Roll with the punches. Kiss your teeth. Draw hearts. So on and so forth. Overarching theme. I think this is a little bit more of like a beginner phone, entry level. The difference between good and great is sometimes the finer details, and that's kind of the difference between this and some of the more premium devices that are maybe, 100% more expensive, or maybe to a certain extent, 110, 120% more expensive. But then again, it rolls with the punches, baby. So thanks again. Peace.